All children dream of becoming something great, but for some, their arms, legs, muscles, or bones won't cooperate. Life gave them obstacles few other children face. North Texas is home to a place dedicated to removing those obstacles. Doctors, researchers, and nurses who don't just prescribe treatments, they invent them. Men and women who know firsthand that regardless of their dreams, these children already are great.
Emily was born with scoliosis. We didn't know that at the time. We just knew that there was a rib deformity at birth.
When I met her, she was 14 months old. She weighed 14 pounds, so only 7 kilograms. It was very small for a 14-month-old. And she had a scoliosis that was 104 degrees. Yeah, that's an outrageously large scoliosis for a child who was that small.
I was constantly asking why me, why this, why now?
And so we sought some other care in other facilities, and they couldn't really figure out what was going on with her. And my father suggested that we go ahead and come over to Scottish Rite Hospital, and that's where we got started.
I literally walked her x-rays and her in front of a couple of my partners who were down in one of the other clinics, and one of my senior partners, kind of shook his head, and I think there was the wise realization that this was perhaps one of those patients where science and medicine didn't have great answers.
I think I was 5 or 6, and I had broken a rod the day before Christmas, and so we flew up here as fast as we could, and I spent Christmas in the hospital. Christmas Eve, I'd woken up from surgery and was in pain, and I heard a knock on the door, and Santa walked in, and he brought me a rocking horse. And of course, all the staff was just very cheerful and still treated me like it was Christmas.
They're incredible, and we knew that the first day we came, their friendliness and their helpfulness was just amazing.
One thing that I tried to realize was that, there's a lot worse things that could happen to me, and yet I was able to stand up and look out my window and see the sunrise every morning. Or I have a mom and I have a dad that love me and care for me, and there's people here at the hospital that love you and will care for you, and I think that's always encouragement.
I think just being able to receive the high level of care that we did changed the course of her quality of life, as well as the stressful situations that we had to undergo. It just seemed less stressful here.
I've had a total of 33 surgeries, so I don't remember all of them after my last surgery. We came up here for post-op checkups, and he told me that everything was great, and I was asking him what all I could do, and he said, "Emily, you can do whatever you want." And at that time I just I think my face lit up and realized that, oh my gosh, it's over.
July 5th, 2007, and I can remember exactly what I was wearing. And we lived in West Texas, and so we flew in when we learned that he was going to have differences.
So Will Butts was born with something called congenital deficiency of both his upper extremities and his lower extremities. That means he doesn't have normal hands nor normal feet.
Things were in total turmoil and chaos, trying to understand what in the world was, if our baby was going to be able to live, and if so, what would his life look like.
He came to the hospital as a newborn with this, what was perceived as a very, very challenging problem, and that's the type of problems we see here.
I had called a friend who's a pediatrician, and he said, "I need you to go to Scottish Rite." And I'd never even heard of Scottish Rite. I was completely unaware about this amazing place. And the morning we walked in here, it was like a peace just came over us. At that point, what I most noticed were the smiling parents. This is a happy place, and I think my soul needed to see that. I needed to see our life was going to be good.
Many children have lower extremity deficiencies or upper extremity. He has both. And so prostheses in his lower extremities are critically important for him to be able to navigate, to get around, to play with his friends, to have the stature physically of his classmates.
Our life was definitely taking a detour from what we thought our life would look like, but it wasn't a bad thing. I really felt that sense of hope here. Ellie started here at 6 days old. Ellie was born with arthrogryposis, which affects all of her joints and causes a limited range of motion. And then a year ago this week, in fact, she was diagnosed with Perthes disease, which is a bone disease. Her doctor, Dr. Herring, part of her disease is named for him, and he's never seen it in conjunction with the arthrogryposis like she has. There's a lot of things about being a little girl that she just wants to do like her friends, and some of those things she's not yet capable of doing. Ellie has a real gift of contentment, so she goes through a lot of really hard things, and she faces some things that break my heart and break hers, and she pushes through and finds joy and contentment, and she lives with a lot of pain. And so I think I'm really proud of her perseverance and her spirit to find joy even when she's hurting.
Her being able to look at her condition as something that makes her better and makes her who she is, that's an inspiration to others.
Will does anything he sets his mind to, and he's extremely creative and resourceful because he's got to figure out how to do it with what he's got.
I wasn't always in a positive state. I had bad thoughts too, but definitely just have faith that there's a purpose.
If I couldn't dance, I would feel very sad. I don't know what I would do.
These moments were made possible by these moments. We wrote the book on pediatric orthopedics, literally.
Concussions can occur in any youth sport. Symptoms may be subtle and may go unnoticed. If your child experiences these symptoms after a head injury, seek medical attention.
CBS Health Watch is sponsored by Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children.
When I'm playing, I feel alive. It just feels like the old days, and it just feels all normal.
These moments were made possible by these moments. We wrote the book on pediatric orthopedics, literally.
For youth athletes, repetitive motions in sports can place stress on a growing child. To help prevent injuries, follow these guidelines. Learn to recognize problems early to prevent injuries that could require surgery.
Sponsored by Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children.
You know, I think Disneyland is a great descriptive for the hospital here, because as you do approach the campus, we've got this beautiful playground. It looks like Disneyland out there. And you know how kids are really attracted to playgrounds. And then as you come into the building has really been designed for the child. And I was just watching a family that was going through the atrium, and you can always tell a family for the first time because they're looking up at this big mobile that we have in the atrium. It's just a fun environment for kids. Hello, I'm Bob Walker, President and CEO of Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children. Well, you know, when the hospital was being first considered, our board wanted a facility that had two or three things. One, that didn't look like a hospital, and we think we've ended up certainly with that, in that it is a building that is non-threatening. It's sort of spread out as opposed to a high-rise.
When you're a kid in this hospital, the doctors come in through one door, and the nurses, like when you're in an exam room. And so it really helps kids who might have medical anxiety, because they know that if this door opens, it's mom or dad, and if it's this door, it's going to be one of my doctors or a nurse. And so just little details like that I think the hospital has really thought through. What would be the best way to approach this for kids?
They didn't want it to feel like a hospital, so when you come in, again, we have this just very caring, compassionate environment here that is totally directed toward the child and their family.
There's a sense here of being normal, When we're here, there's no staring, there's no questions. I mean, if there is, it's from other kids who also have differences.
And the other, they didn't want it to smell like a hospital. In fact, what you smell at Scottish Rite is popcorn.
And the first thing I remember was the popcorn machine downstairs. And just the smell of the popcorn and seeing that kind of old-fashioned machine kind of makes you feel a little bit more comforted.
Many times we have children who, after they've been here for a little while, hate to leave the hospital because it is a fun environment too. We number almost 900 active volunteers. So every day in every department, we have volunteers that are supporting the work that we do. From someone greeting a patient or family or visitor to the hospital at our front desk, you go back in the clinics and they're greeting patients as they walk to into their clinic appointments.
I became a volunteer because when I retired from my full-time job, I was looking for something to do, and I knew I had a lot to give, and this was a good place to come. My name is Karen Apple. I'm a volunteer at Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children, and I've been doing it since 2008.
We could not exist without volunteers, and they also set sort of the spirit for the hospital. It's one of giving back, and we are just indebted every day to those that can carve out time to come and support this mission.
You kind of get to know the families, and sometimes you'll see somebody come as a baby, as an infant, and then all of a sudden he's 2 years old, and then he's 4 years old, and he's running around. You see somebody walk on prosthetics for the first time and really kind of get around. Being a volunteer is better for the volunteer than the organization where they are.
The overall mission of the hospital is to give children back their childhood, and we really do that in several different ways. One is the clinical care that we provide the child, so when that child is referred to the hospital here, that they absolutely get the best clinical care for that particular condition that they could get anywhere. The other is that we are a teaching hospital, and we're affiliated with probably 60+ universities around the country where students rotate and get part of their educational experience in healthcare here at this hospital. So when they leave this hospital and go and start their practice in either another city, another state, they're taking part of Scottish Rite. And the third is research. We do a lot of research here at the hospital, and through that research, we're able to touch the lives of children literally all over the world.
Our job is to discover the fundamental causes of the conditions in children that we treat here at the hospital. Hi, I'm Dr. Carol Wise. I'm the Director of Basic Research at Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children. We're sort of like an engine, like a car, and our job is to get in under the hood and understand what's going wrong with the engine. Our number one referral to this hospital is scoliosis. It's a worldwide problem. Millions of children around the world are affected with scoliosis. What causes it was an open question. So for centuries, literally, physicians have scratched their heads over what's causing a seemingly healthy child to develop a curvature of the spine. So we decided to use a genetic approach. And in this case, we're looking for those genes that increase your risk of scoliosis. And we discovered the first gene about 10 years ago, and that was a breakthrough because it said to the world, yes, there are genetic contributions to this condition. Since then, have either discovered or been part of the discovery of many genes that are genetic risk factors for idiopathic scoliosis. Our work has also sort of galvanized other researchers across the world so that we can discover the signals and the genes that we couldn't have done independently. It's putting all the pieces of the puzzle together and telling us what's causing scoliosis. We are doing work that is directly related to patients, and I feel very lucky in that regard because most scientists don't have a direct connection to the patients, and we do, and that's meaningful to me.
Young athletes participating in a single sport increase their risk of injury due to repeating motions like throwing, jumping, and running, Follow these recommendations to take steps to minimize the risk of injuries.
Sponsored by Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children.
Once you're kind of in the game and you almost lose yourself in that moment, you know the fans are there, but you can't even hear them. It's just you in the field and your teammates, and I just kind of love that feeling. It'd be hard to imagine not playing.
These moments were made possible by these moments. We wrote the book on pediatric orthopedics, literally.
Youth education is critical to prevent traumatic brain injuries in sports. Teach and practice safe playing techniques and ensure players wear the proper protective gear.
CBS Health Watch is sponsored by Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children.
Youth athletes continue to experience high incidence of knee injuries, especially females. Follow these steps to help prevent knee injuries while also incorporating the proper warm-up and cool-down procedures. If your child does experience knee pain, stop sports activities and see a doctor. The pain can often be relieved and conditioning routines recommended.
CBS Health Watch is sponsored by Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children. When it comes to pediatric orthopedics, no one's better at giving children back their childhood.
We had searched for so long and we knew that there was something big going on. So when we came here, the first day we came, they had a plan in place. They knew exactly where we were going with her treatments.
Emily's very memorable, and in fact, I was in this exam room right there the first time I met her. Hi, I'm Dr. Carl Rathjen, a pediatric orthopedic surgeon at Texas Scottish Rite Hospital.
This is like my second home. I would call him my second dad. I mean, I grew up with him.
She has the more rare, very early onset form of scoliosis. So with these children, the normal treatment for scoliosis involves fusing the spine. You can't fuse the spine of a young child who needs to grow, right?
As an orthopedic surgeon, there are certainly some things that you realize are going to be greater challenges. There's some things where we have relatively simple answers for, scientifically and medically, and there are others where you realize there may be an opportunity to growth and to push the limits of knowledge.
And so the treatment for her in those days was repeated surgeries. So it involved placing a rod along her spine to lengthen the spine, and then months later coming back and doing another surgery and growing the rod so that her spine could grow, et cetera, et cetera. Now we have a new device called the Magic Rod, and this is a rod that's controlled magnetically. There's one surgery, and the rod can be put in along the spine, and then when the child comes back to clinic, an external magnet can be used to pull the rod to allow the spine to grow without having to go back in and do an invasive surgery. So that is life-changing for children. Unlike Emily, they won't have to go through all the surgeries that she endured.
And I think we realize here that we have a unique set of assets to be able to commit to help identify new solutions.
Here at the hospital, we see many patients with limb deficiencies, whether it's congenital, traumatic, infectious. It's a matter of bringing them into the clinic, seeing other children who have very similar problems, and all of a sudden the family and Will, as he gets older, recognizes that he's very similar to many children. Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Ciccato. I'm one of the orthopedic surgeons and the Chief of Staff here at Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children. I think the team approach is probably the core of what we do here at the hospital. So it's the physicians, it's the nurses, it's the orthotists, the prosthetists, the therapists. So for Will, all of those folks were involved in his care.
And we're constantly learning from one another. Emily's story, if you will, from the medical standpoint, is that she was part of an evolution of care.
So our orthotic and prosthetic department, we're uniquely positioned because they're in-house. So we have a team of orthotists, a team of prosthetists, and then we have a lab that is able to make those prosthetics and orthotics for each patient. So they're custom made for each patient.
My name is Dwight Putnam. I'm a prosthetist at Texas Scottish Rite Hospital in Dallas. I work down in the prosthetics department, and today I'm just going to show you a few things that I have going on my bench. This is a little bit middle ground. This kid actually I know just because I've worked with him for a little bit, but he's ready to get back out onto the baseball field. And what this is basically just an articulating prosthesis. And in the past, he's just been walking with a stiff-legged prosthesis, so he's pretty excited to be able to actually get a knee back. He's ready to go and he's ready to run the bases and play some t-ball. This is a prosthetic arm, what basically represents the highest point of technology as far as the prosthetics go. They're controlled by the patient themselves, and you have the ability to open and close the hand as well as rotate. And so what all of these represent is basically a step towards each one of these patients' independence, a step towards normalcy, and basically allowing these kids to do whatever they want to do thanks to the devices that we make down here.
Anytime we've had a challenge for Will with something he wants to do, between his brain and the brains up here, either they figure out a piece of adaptive equipment or they teach us a new way.
The C Center is our research center here on the floor, and the C Center brings together all the different research disciplines that we have here. So, as I said, we have basic research. You're standing in a laboratory where we make what we call the fundamental discoveries of the causes of conditions that are treated here. Down the hall, we have bioengineers who work on devices like the spinal instrumentation rods that we were just discussing. Downstairs, we have a movement science lab that quantitatively measures how children can walk and run and before and after surgery, and how they're doing out in the community after they've received their treatment here. Clinicians will say, we need to treat this child, but what we have in the operating room could be better. And so that conversation grows into device development, and eventually many of those have been patented and they're used worldwide.
All the patents came about because of our strong research interests, our strong research activities. So research really is the engine that drives our clinical decision making.
We feel that if you're at an academic center of pediatric orthopedics that is at the forefront of improving education and developing patents and the cutting edge of treatments, that is a foundation that is going to allow the care of the individual patient to be improved upon.
I think the patents sort of give you a history of research here, and it gives you a measure of the success here.
Keep in mind that your child is going through a hard journey, but that there's people on your side and they'll help you out.
We have about 40 full-time physicians that work for the hospital, and these physicians are literally known nationally and internationally for their work. They actually wrote the book on pediatric orthopedics, and this is a reference book.
And we write the pediatric orthopedic book that residents read, that staff physicians read, and it's all throughout the country. And in fact, the international sales have been as high as the national sales. So it's really the book that everybody goes to for pediatric orthopedic surgery.
In a typical year, we'll see about 22,000 patients in the outpatient clinics, and then we'll operate on a little over 2,000 of those patients. Most of our patients are referred by other physicians. Increasingly, families with severe conditions or unusual conditions will find us on the internet, and so it is increasingly, common that a family may email you directly, and then we have our patient access staff can reach out to them and see if it's appropriate for them to be seen here.
I think having a team alongside us and things don't faze them. So things that felt really big or impossible to me, so many of our doctors or nurses here are just like, calm down, we've got this. So as a mom, I think having that team alongside us that is so capable and so world-renowned and know our kiddos and love our kids. I hate to use home away from home because it's a hospital, but I think for my kids it's very much a sense of place.
I've been having this hip pain for the majority of my life, but he fixed it, and it gave me the thing that I loved most back. Running gives you a sense of freedom that you couldn't get from anything else.
These moments were made possible by these moments. We wrote the book on pediatric orthopedics, literally.
Over 173,000 sports-related head injuries are treated annually. If you think your child has a concussion, follow these steps and seek medical attention.
CBS Health Watch is sponsored by Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children.
give life everything you have in you. If I couldn't flip, I'd feel depressed.
These moments were made possible by these moments. We wrote the book on pediatric orthopedics. Literally.
A concussion does not always result in a loss of consciousness. It is important for parents and coaches to know the warning signs. When in doubt, sit them out, keep them out, and seek medical attention.
Sponsored by Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children.
I'll tell you a story. When I was pregnant with Ellie, she wasn't supposed to live. And I can remember sitting at my dining room table one afternoon, and we were going through the diagnosis stuff with her, and the grief, really, that we were probably going to lose her. She wasn't supposed to live past 18 months old. And a nurse from here called, Dr. Herring's nurse. I mean, that wasn't normal, that we aren't normally calling us. But she called and she cried on the phone with me. She had heard what was going on, and it was such a sense. She loved my family. She knew Will, and she loved us. But her compassion that day was incredible. That wasn't part of her job. And I think that would be true of so many here, that they love these kids. They know their names when you walk through those halls, and I feel like they really walk alongside their families. They want the best for the kids and their families.
What impressed me more was the genuine people here. They truly care about you. They ask about you. They ask about your family. They include your family in decisions. It's the people that made the difference for us.
There's seldom a day, and probably never a week that goes by that you don't interact with a patient and a family that gives you a very unique sense of perspective. That whatever it was that was consuming you, and you look at the grace with which a family deals with a much greater struggle, it just helps keep every day in perspective.
All the expertise that can possibly be brought to bear will be for your child.
We're very fortunate to have just a world-class medical staff that truly are committed.
It was just a pervading sense of peace and joy, and I saw happy moms and dads, and I saw happy kids.
We get back a sense of accomplishment and reward every day.
We're so fortunate to be here and to be in direct contact with these patients and families.
I am so proud of her. She's just amazing in her faith and the way she looks at things.
I think a lot of the times I stayed strong so they didn't have to.
These little people are incredible. And if they can get up every day and face their challenges, so can we. So there's more that we need to do.
Greatness doesn't always wait until the finish line. It reveals itself with each step of the way, because for some, each and every step is a victory of its own. The doctors and researchers of Texas Scottish Rite Hospital for Children learn something new every day about their patients' disorders. But they'll be the first to tell you, they learn much more from the patients themselves.